Awesome. I forgot to record it from OBS last time. Um, and so I was relying on the stream recording, which was not as good, which is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you get what you get. Where I was going with that? Reason I use a green screen. I have a home office, and my home office is so messy. It's indefensibly messy. I really cannot express how bad it is, which is why you don't get to see it. Now, that may change sometime in the future, but for now, no. Too messy, can't show anyone my office because it is in quite a state. Now, what have I been up to since my last stream? We're going to start with our stand-up, right? I'm used to an agile work environment, so I'm going to talk about what I did since our last stand-up, which was Monday, what I'm working on now, and what I'm going to work on between now and next stand-up, right? Now and next stream. Along with whatever blockers I might have. Which is great, because with a team as big as mine, one person, plus my 5 subscribers, thanks again, subscribers, and my Patreon supporters, thanks again, Patreon supporters. With a team as large as mine, if I run into a problem, run into some kind of blocker, no sweat, we got it covered. Anyways, so, since last stream, I've been working on some art-related stuff, and you might be able to tell that the floor is a little less samey, right? I still don't love it. I played around a little bit with creating some grass textures in Sprite, and I wasn't into a lot of how it looked. It all came out like really saturated for whatever reason, and I'm not sure if there are some like unanswered questions for what would be the best way to set up the lighting for the prototype, because I wanted to be able to play on a potato or maybe a browser. So I really have to aim low visually. So it'll really come down to what can I execute on within the constraints, and this is just about as close as I could get. With that in mind, I have done a little bit of modeling work. So in addition to this grass texture, you may have seen sort of a thin orange kind of thingy. It's the fence that I've been working on. I made one fence post. I have it in the project, along with one wire that will make up the new fence. And made it in Blender. First time really ever using Blender. First time, well, okay, that's not entirely true. I have used Blender in the past, but this is the first time I've used Blender to model something and set the UVs for it. And did so in a way that was like mildly successful, right? So you might have seen that fence post. So part of what I'm going to be working on today, segue, is I'm going to be replacing the current purple wall that surrounds the drone colony with a fence made up of posts and wires. With some kind of a collider. I haven't 100% decided exactly how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to try to leave some space for a gate, the garage, which is sort of the equivalent of the barn, and places for them to recharge, because there will come a time where I'm going to introduce battery levels and recharging for the drones, because that's one of the axes for improvement for the colony itself, right? But that's all kick the can down the road level stuff, because the focus is still, we want to have a bunch of little guys that are running around and that are up to stuff. That's where our focus is right now. That's where our focus is mostly going to stay. But in the meantime, I do want to replace that fence. So fence first. Once the fence is replaced, my next short-term goals, and I'm probably going to get to an amount of this during stream, is that I want to set up some sort of a database for the individual drones in Engine, so that they aren't just passing around references to the character body 3D of the actual nodes that are running around right now. You've got your Trongles, you've got your Roombots, they're moving around. The character body 3D is currently holding all of the biographical information about the character. And this is bad, obviously, because if the character is off-screen, if I, for example, move them into the garage or send them off on a mission, and I don't want to keep them loaded with collision and all of those other scripts, right? But I still need a record of the biographical information, the nickname, what kind of drone they are, their individual stats, maybe their personality stats, once that's all sorted out, the kinds of temporary variables, like the current battery level or sustained damage and other stuff that matters, right? That all needs to go somewhere, and I don't want to keep putting it all in the character body. So that ends today. Once I got the fence ironed out, I need to create sort of a character roster for the player, for their colony. And then lastly, if time allows, currently, as you can see, the camera is slowly panning around drones as they get targeted right now. And there are two problems with the way I set up this particular camera. One problem is that every single one of those drones has a camera on it. And that script is simply rotating the spring arm that the camera is attached to. That's too many cameras. It can't be good for the game to have that many cameras, even if only one of them is active at a time. So I aim to replace that camera with one set of nodes, one scene that lives in the game manager. Game manager, not the thing that it sounds like I said, Happy Pride Month, that will hop around and, as needed, get shots of particular characters, using roughly the same system to pick who to watch next, right? On top of that, though, there's another problem, and that is currently there's only one type of shot used when we're moving around like this, and it's sort of just an orbiting shot. It appears to be at a fixed rate because I'm having it orbit very slowly, but I'm doing it during the process function, which happens every frame. And it occurred to me, I didn't exactly have a nightmare about it, but it came to me while I was trying to fall asleep that that's frame rate dependent, because I don't have delta or delta time or anything like that factoring into the speed of the rotation. And that means it's going to rotate faster on faster computers and slower on slower computers. And that is bad. We don't want that. We don't want it to be frame rate dependent. We want it to be time dependent. So that needs to change. But also, I looked at the reference material again, and there aren't just rotating shots like this. Sometimes, and when I mean reference material, I usually am referring to the game My Pokemon Ranch. So in My Pokemon Ranch, sort of the equivalent mode has a few different types of camera shots it will take when it chooses to focus on somebody that is on the ranch. We only have the one. So I need to come up with a system that creates more than one and will pick from the different types of camera shots and have appropriate behavior for those different camera movements, right? Off the top of my head, I remember slowly rotating clockwise, slowly rotating counterclockwise, pulling in, pulling out. We may be able to have one where we sort of start at a tighter like a lower to the ground angle and move up, or the reverse. And I think it would also be kind of neat if there was a mode that followed one of them around almost as if they were a third-person character in a traditional game. Like, sort of an over-the-shoulder, or following around based on their movement and their orientation. And there's two reasons to do that. One, it would be nice variety. And if we lock, I intend to add a feature that allows us to basically lock the camera on one of our drones, so we can just watch somebody in particular if we feel like it, right? In which case, that would be the default camera behavior until we change modes, or until we change the camera behavior, maybe by selecting something in a menu or something like that. Another good reason for us to experiment with that is I kind of want to have the option for the player to have a third-person character that they can move around in the colony while the drones are doing their stuff, and they can maybe come up and interact with you while you do that. So you can have control of a character and interact with and pet your little robots. Very important that you can pet the robots. But I would need to script a third-person camera to make that happen, to go with the third-person character, right? So I figured I might as well script something like that and sort of throw it in the pool of types of camera movements for these little segments here. So those are all the things that are in my mind right now. Replacing the fences, biographical database for the drones, and camera movement. Now, before I get into it, I'm going to level with y'all. Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 came out today. I would love to play that, but I'm not going to do that because I owe it to y'all, and I do need to get some work done. But also because there's a certain person in my life who needs to watch me play this game, and they would like to have a nap. So at the end of the day, even if I wanted to just stop streaming and go play it, I can't. So this is what I'm gonna do. It's not that I don't love y'all. It's that there are more important things, obviously. So anyways, let's get to it. Let me just change views here. Very cool. That's the view I was hoping to change to. Now, another thing I'm excited about is that despite the fact that I'm wearing a shirt that has a lot of white on it, somehow the green of this floor is not bouncing off of my shirt and keying my shirt out like it did, I want to say it was Friday of last week. So very cool. Glad that's not a problem today. So we've got this fence post I made. Oh. Very sensitive movement here. But this is pretty cool. I knew I needed to learn how to do some low poly modeling for this project, right? And I also knew that... Why is it... Oh, it's because it's still running. I also knew that UV mapping and texturing could be a challenge for me, right? Because I don't have a lot of experience with 3D modeling. Like, I took a course in college, and I think I did for like 3D modeling and animation. It was a very different tool set. I'm trying to use Blender. I needed to follow some tutorials. It just wouldn't be a responsible thing to do during a live stream because it would be boring and I would be pausing a video all the time to do something and it would suck. So I made sure to do whatever work I could on that off stream so that y'all could just enjoy the fruits of the labor. And that is this one fence post that I'm going to use to create an entire fence system around the farm. So let's start with that. So what I'm going to need to do for my own sanity is basically create a scene with a few fence posts deployed that I can sort of spam and copy and paste for my own sanity, right? So we've got the fence post itself. We've got, and it's a little bit thin, but there's basically like a braided wire kind of thing going on. Man, I don't know why this is so sensitive. But yeah, we've got something of a little bit of a braided wire there. Pretty cool. Pretty excited by that. So what I'm going to do, I need to find a grid locking or grid snap value that's going to allow us to place it in a snapped way, also for our sanity. But for now, I have it placed sort of in a very finicky position relative to that that particular fence post. And I guess I'm okay with that on some level. And that might actually be the fastest way forward, is to just sort of roll with that. So let's do that. Now, right now, I think they're all sort of in the level, just so that I could... oh, it's the fence post that I put in the level. Because I needed to bake the... Let's see, selection change at some point can't... What? Can I not? There we go. Pull out of navigation. I had to put it inside the level object in order to bake collision for the nav mesh. But I no longer need to have a static body and a collider and stuff attached to this thing. So we got that. Very cool. What I'm going to do is create a group that I can copy and paste. And then I'm going to sort of slap a collider in and around that, just for the sake of the level. That will get us most of the way to where we want to be. It just won't be perfect, right? So, let's see. I need to copy that fence cable. I don't want to make them a child of anything in particular, right? Oh, and I have grid snap on, so it's going to default to kind of an insane position. I wonder if there's something I can do. I guess... There we go. Okay. I might just have to place the camera in a more sensible location, I guess, for this. This is kind of difficult. Man. Gross. I goofed. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So, I'm trying to get it to line up with the hole on the actual, like, texture here. And at some point I was thinking about what does that hole actually represent in terms of space. Okay, maybe if we look at -z. Okay, that was a fool's errand. If this were its own scene, I might be able to rely on scene manipulation for this. Okay, now that we're like super zoomed in, we have a slightly more granular control. There we go. Okay, this is... Well, but now there's no handle over there. This is very tricky. Probably would have helped me to flip that around. So it just needs to go up a little tiny bit more. Honestly, I feel like it would be doing myself an enormous favor to create a scene to do this manipulation in. So I might need to do that. Let's... Let's do that. We're going to create... I guess one of the better ways to do this would be to create a child of this guy. And it's going to be a node 3D, right? But then pop it out. And then pull a little reverse. And then make these the children of that. Bingo. And then we make this thing a scene, and then we go in and edit some more. So what we could do is call this guy... I'm not sure what we want to call it. We want a certain number... I want to be able to do a certain number of... or a certain distance at a time, right? So I guess it would make sense to figure out how long is the fence that's currently in place. 30. So the current fence is 30 units long, right? So what would make sense? We could try to do something like lengths of 10, right? I don't know. I feel like I'm overthinking it. Let's just smash a few together, copy and paste them, call it a day. Especially if I do some sort of pattern where there's strands on both sides, and I can sort of end cap them with something, and that would get me roughly where I want to go. I didn't really think about this too much when I was making the assets. I just thought, oh, I need to improve the visuals, and then didn't really think about the ramifications of how I would actually do it in Engine, right? So this is a workflow process issue. So let's figure that out. Let's call this fence group 1. Cool. And this can go in the scenes folder, of course. Boop. Fence group 1 in scenes, save. And now we can open that guy. Very cool. This is much better. This is much more manageable, right? So transform. This should tell us basically the local transform of this guy. Now, since the anchor point is all the way over there, it makes sense to me to sort of build these in the negative Z direction instead of the positive Z direction. So let's play around with that a little bit. I'm actually very tempted to set the Z, set that to 0. Even that sort of puts it firmly in the center of the pole. It should make it a lot easier to sort of space out the length of these. Because if I remember correctly, they should be basically 2 units long exactly, right? So we can set the Z of that one to 0 as well. Very cool. And now let's see if we can dial in where exactly they need to be height-wise. Because that's sort of an open question, right? So it's looking pretty close to 0.25, maybe? No. Maybe 0.275? Too high. 0.27 was almost on the nose, wasn't it? You know, that really seems good enough to me. As for the width, feels like it could go this way just a tiny bit. I feel like I made that whole sprite just a tiny bit too small, actually. Maybe -0.58. feel like that's about as good as it's going to get, right? So, we've got that dialed in. We can actually get rid of this guy. Now, I'm a little curious. What's up with these orange lines? Is it just telling me like the bounds of the shape or something? I don't know. I guess I didn't really look too closely at what the scene is, right? It's automatically imported, can't be modified. I have to make a new inherited scene. I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to see underneath that hood. I don't want to know what secrets are in store there. Okay, so we got another one. What's our positive Y like this time? So for that one, that was 0.27, right? And for this guy, that doesn't seem right. Oh, okay. I have a hunch. Well, hang on. I don't necessarily know what the pattern is here in terms of height, right? I feel like 8.5 is the way to go. I mean, that's close, but it's not quite there. 8.55. It seems a little random to me. And that one was 2.7. Interesting. I don't know if I like exactly how this is playing out. Okay, we're gonna do another one. Pull this guy up. And where does this guy land? 0.144. And that was 0.27. 2.7 times 2 would be 5.4. 1.54 is what I would expect this to be, not 1.44. Interesting. I'm not going to overthink that. It seems okay, right? And let's do another one. Whoop. All right, where does this guy land for us? Interesting. I mean, I'm sort of okay with sort of eyeballing it at this stage, because it is the prototype after all, right? Imagine this is the kind of thing where it might be possible to sort of designate these locations on the fence post model in Blender, but I'm just not powerful enough to know how to do that exactly at this point. Oh, don't want to make it a child of the bar, right? That seems pretty dang close. Okay, one last one. This one's going to be a little harder to place because I can't use the same point as the rest. So we're just going to have to sort of massage this, I think. Honestly, I think this is a little easier because the actual, as you can tell, the sprites are rotated here because that's how I did the texture map, I guess. that fits like a freaking glove. So, okay, I'm cool with that. So this is what like one section, blah blah blah, what one section of fence looks like. So at this point, it makes sense to me to probably parent all of these to the actual fence post, right? Parent them to the fence post, and then I think each row probably ought to be its own group, just for sake of copy and pasting. It seems to me like it would be the most effective way to go about this, because then I can adjust the Z coordinate pretty much manually at that point and be ready to rock. And the fence group here is, the pivot point is at the end, right? So here's what we do. We take these, we make them parent of the fenced post. Very cool. Then I guess what I do is we do what we did before. We do a node 3D, pull it out. Then we do cable row 1 and child. Bingo. So now if I want to extend that length to create a certain length of cable, I can do it from there. Then I just repeat. Add child node, node 3D, we do cable row 2, pull it out, more rinsing, more repeating. So we go cable row 3, pull it out, reverse, bingo. Now that I'm looking at this, this might actually be a little bit too busy for the scene. But we're going to stay the course because I made it and I want to see it in action. So, and if we don't like it, well, we can replace it later. Child node, another node 3D. We call it cable row 4. Pull it out. Come on. There we go. Another one. Cable row 5. Make it the parent. We do another one. Cable row 6. Boom. Make it the parent. And another one. Cable row 7. Very cool. Come on. There we go. And let's fix our little formatting mistake there with that letter C not being capital. We want to stay consistent, if at all possible, of course. Okay. So that's starting to shape up a little bit. Now, each of these segments is 2 units, sort of the equivalent of 2 meters. I would say we do... my gut instinct says 2 at a time. Like 2, maybe 3 lengths of cable, and then post, and then repeat, right? But if we did that, then we don't get to 30 in an even increment. So how do we do this in a way that gets us to 5? That's tricky. We can't do that in segments of 2. We can do it for 10. Then we do 5 segments of 2. I feel like that's the way to go. Let's do 5 segments of 2. That gives us a length of 10. 3 of those makes a length of 30. And then we can just end cap it and call it a day. So. Yeah, but a length of 2 is just one piece of wire, right? And that would be what, 5 posts to get a length of 10? I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. Let's just do 2 at a time. 2 or 3, maybe. Well, let me really quickly look. I'm going to look at a reference image for industrial fences. Just to see roughly how often there's a post. Oh, yeah, okay. So if I did more than 2 lengths, that would look a little weird. Just based off of the reference images, right? So I think the cable row thing, that may have been overkill, actually. I may not have needed to do that, but we're there, so we might as well go for it. So this is where actually we can turn, I think, grid snapping on. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Shouldn't grid snapping be my friend here? Oh, it's offset somehow. They aren't set to 0. Are they not? That's 0. And the transform of the parent is 0. Then why is the grid snapping betraying me? Is this a project settings issue? Maybe, hang on. This is a problem with fence group. The fence group transform. It's not. The panel? No. I just don't get why grid snapping is betraying me here. Okay, so we're gonna pull it together. So grid snap of 2, for whatever reason, doesn't quite get me where I need it to be. That's very strange. Wait. Now it does. Okay, that's weird. I do not understand that. But that appeared to work perfectly this time, and I don't know what I did differently. Anyways. Boop, boop. Cool. Copy, paste. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Doot, doot. Nice and simple. Doot, doot. Okay, so that is 1 length of fence. This may be a perspective thing or a resolution thing, but something feels weird about it. It must be a perspective thing, like field of view, maybe fish-eyeing it somehow. But there's 1 section, right? I should be able to combine a bunch of these using grid snap placement, because of the way I place the anchor, to build out my fence. And I probably still want to do some grouping even then. But we're going to save this. Scene. Save scene. Very cool. And now we've got a group. And if I turn grid snap on, first, what's our transform like, right? So if I do 1, 0, where does that put us? Right there. And I should be able to grid snap that guy. To a place that will let me build out a fence, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do... We're going to create a node 3D. Pop it out. Reverse parentage here. We're going to name this guy. We're going to call it something like fence times, let's see, it's 4, so 5 of them is going to be a length of 20. So let's go fence times 5, right? And now I need to do, let's hide that, I guess. There's a way I can like not hide it, but make it like translucent or something. That might be on the material. Come on. Fence material. Transparency. Sure. Let's make it alpha. And maybe if we change the color of the albedo. Hey, we got it. Now we have like a whisper of a fence for what we had before. Cool. So fence times 5, right? Let's get them in a position. We're almost there. That's pretty much exactly where we want to be, right? So now I'm gonna hide that piece of fence. We're working within this other piece of fence. Which one is it? That's fence 3. Can I lock it so that I don't accidentally touch it? It doesn't really matter. Okay, fence times 5. We're now just going to copy and paste the fence groups. Oh no, I don't want to make them children of fence group 1. No. There we go. They want to be. I want them to be copies or children of fence group or fence times 5 rather. Very cool. Okay. There's 3. Just one more. There's our 5. Very cool. So we have 5 chunks of fence there. Awesome. Happy to see it. I want to turn that into a scene, I think. So let's find, where's the scenes folder? There it is. Drag that in. We're going to do fence 1 times 5 because it is fence 1 after all, right? Or maybe fence underscore G underscore 1 times 5, save. Did that actually work? Yeah, that is what it's called. Okay. But I'm going to rename this to make it appropriate here. So it's fence underscore G underscore 1 X underscore 5. Cool. So now we can copy and paste that. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so now we have an issue. We might just have to pull one of these instead, where we just Well, I guess we could just slide into the level at this point, right? And if we copy it and paste it into the level, yeah, it preserves our position. Very cool. Okay, so ending with a number doesn't exactly do what I wanted it to do. And very interesting. So we did 3 fence sections, 5 each, and somehow that gets us to 30 units. I think I may have done the opposite of F up and did something smart here, didn't I? So next what I ought to do is drop another fence post in there, right? So that's in models. And I want to just gently slide this into position. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Right? Because now what I can do, go all the way over here. We do another node 3D, right? Now, we're going to go _1, 5_2, and 5_3, because I don't like the fact that it incremented the ×5 thing. That's not great. We don't like ×5 incrementation there. But I do like the fact that I have 30 fence right there that I can now copy. So we flip things around. We once again make these children of this. And now we can do fence G 30L. And we can turn that into a scene. Boop. And now what I can do is copy it, paste it into level, rotate it at 180 degrees. I think that's correct. That is. And move it to the other side of the map. Right, very good, very good. We like that very much. Or at least I do. Very cool. And then we can do it yet again. This time we're just going to rotate it a little bit. 90 degrees. That's not enough. There we go. Now there is an issue where they collide. Obviously, this is not the ideal situation. Oh snap, they're facing the wrong way. That's awkward. We want the lip to be facing out of the farm, right? So oddly enough, it's actually this one that is wrong. It's not quite 90 degrees. There we go. And let's just socket this into place. I think that's about right. Now, is this really so bad? Yeah, that's pretty bad. So we probably want to like space these out a little bit and put put something in the corners for our own sanity, because we didn't really make a corner piece here. But we might be able to do something about that. We might be able to do something about that, right? And then lastly, we need to do one more. So child of the level. This time we rotate it. Snap, come on. Like so. And then get it into position over there. Oh no, that's still not right. Sorry about that, bud. That's better. Wow, that was so painless. Now, it doesn't look as nice as it could, but that's not terrible. I wouldn't call that terrible. Okay. So I think what we can go ahead and do, if I hide the other wall sections, I think I should be able to just hit play. And of course we need to rebake navigation, right? Because just the random fence post that was in the middle of the map is now gone. Oh no, but that one of those fences is placed wrong. It's this guy. Right? Yeah, we need to flip that around. Up. And slide it into place. That's better. And let's give it a shot. How are we looking with our brand new fence? So far, so good. Time's gonna tell, though. I need to see it in action. Show me the fence. Show me people running up on the fence. I haven't actually removed the wall objects. I just made them invisible. Because they were like very in the way, right? Hey, that looks pretty good. I kind of feel like I went overboard with the number of cables on it. Like, we could probably have reduced that number a little bit, but it doesn't seem to be causing any issues. It looks fine. I'm not like super jazzed with how it looks, but I'm pleased with it, I would say. That's pretty cool. For now, I'm just gonna call that like a tentative W, really. Because it seems fine. Right? That seems well, it's definitely an improvement over like a completely barren wall, right? So yeah, I'm gonna call that a W. That's an improvement. Cool. So, next steps. We gotta create some space for a fence, or like, not a fence, a gate for like leaving. We gotta create some space for the garage and the charging area. I sort of envision the garage to be sort of in this region where the camera is currently placed for the most part, and that the gate would be opposite that. In the event that a robot gets like launched out of the colony, we probably want a way for them to queue up to re-enter and get back in. So I think that would probably be a good way to go about that. Is to sort of prepare to include that feature, right? And with the barn in mind, we should do something sort of similar on this side. So off the bat, it makes sense to me to actually break up this scene in favor of the smaller ones, the 10 length ones, right? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take the fence G X15. I'm going to rename it, I think. Come on, I want to rename you. How do I do that? Rename, there we go. 0.5 length. That way, when I start putting in scenes and duplicating it, it doesn't get all screwy. Very cool. So, what I do, I think what I do is I hide that. I start throwing this fence around. And basically, I'm just going to do a little bit on each end and then close it up is what I'm going to do. Right? So we're going to do one of those. Very cool. We do another one of those. Oh, I accidentally goofed. So we do another one of those. We're going to need another post, of course. So we're going to get that lined up here a little further. And we're going to need another fence post for that. So that's in models. There we go. That's my boy. There we go. Okay, and we need one of those here too, to sort of cinch things off. There we go. Okay, and that's going to be a child of that because that's, I guess, for now, where the garage is going to go, yeah? So then, we're going to do, before I go any further, what were the fences made out of, right? CSG box 3D. Okay. So, we're going to do another one of those. Pull them over here. Very cool. Let's make it nice and big. We'll go 10 by 10 by 10 for now. Because this is going to be the stand-in for the garage until I model one, of course. And it needs to be a little wider, right? What does 20 look like? Does that clip into the fence? Slightly. What if I go 19? What if I go 19.5? Man, 19.75? Hey! I like working in units that are divisible evenly like this, right? Because I think about pixel art a lot, and so 19.75, that makes perfect sense to me. So we've got something that can function as our garage, right? And in terms of material, we're going to slap the fence material in there because that's transparent, right? We don't want something opaque blocking our drones. But we do want to go ahead and put it into the level so that I can rebake our collision. And we'll put it there. Now when we do bake, cool. It does account for it. Not that it matters, because technically it sees the wall is still being in place. But I'm still more comfortable with having something earmarked for the garage anyways, just in the first place. Now we got to worry about the gate, right? Something opposite the garage. So similar to before, we've got this guy gone. And the other one, we just sort of hit it, gone. So now what I can do is take these fence units that I added an extra post to, and we can copy and paste them, right? So we've got one. We do need to rotate it 180 degrees. There we go. Can't seem to talk today. And get it into place. There we are. And now we can sort of copy and paste that into the level again. So we've got another one. Now, of course, the gate is not going to be quite as wide as the garage, because that doesn't really make sense, does it? But it's like not a zero amount of size. This is where those smaller fence groups come in handy. So we've got the one at a time fence groups, so we can just sort of use these to sort of extend the garage a little bit. Or sorry, extend the fence a little bit is what I meant to say. And that should line right up. But it doesn't. There we go. That's better. And we've got that group, that's group 7. So let's make that a child of 7. Very nice. You can copy it, paste it into the level. Okay, that didn't really go the way I expected. But I will take it. Okay, I think this is a symptom of the fact that, there we go, that post is a lone post, right? So if I get this one into position, I can connect it with that lone post, and then we can close the loop, so to speak. This is where like a tool would come in handy. I would be keen to develop a sort of a fence building tool or something similar to that in Godot for my own use, as a learning experience and as a valuable tool. Okay, this is still just a little small, so I feel like the way to go would be to just drop another one of these in, right? Why are you all the way over there? And then maybe one more over here too. Man, it doesn't seem to know where it wants to paste stuff. Whoops. Wrong handle. One more notch. There we go. That's more like it. There, we have like a one fence section gap for a gate now. It's not perfect, but that does mean though that what I can do is create like a gate object that I can just sort of stash there. Right. I'm gonna make that a child of this. But that should be a child of that. That should be a child of 7. Yeah, that all checks out. Okay. So what I can do is I can make a copy of that. And let's rename this to barn, not barn, garage stand in. Because that's what it is. You can copy it, paste it. Oh no, not a child of the garage though. We'll make it a child of the level. Slosh it all the way over here. And let's play with the size. I want to say it's going to be something closer to 222, right? Okay, that's pretty good starting point. What about 3? 4, not 5. 4.725, if I remember correctly. Ooh, not quite. 4.5. Still wrong. 4.25. 3.725. Perfect. A snug fit. Let's make it thinner. Oh no, not less tall. We want that to still be pretty tall. Let's go up to 7. Because this is our stand-in for a gate, right? We can make it thinner still. 0.25. Very cool. And now, make it a child of the level if it wasn't already. We make our nav mesh again. Okay. So now let's see it again. Let's see what we're working with. Okay. It's looking pretty bright to me so far. I'm definitely appreciating the fences now that I'm sort of seeing them in action, right? This is definitely closer to the Vision TM. I ought to make the obelisk partially transparent at this point, right? Because there's no reason for us to have an opaque obelisk in the middle of our farm for no reason other than for collision testing, which is why it's there. So, let's fix that too. Obelisk is its own material. So, transparency is going to be alpha. That's an albedo. Knock that down a peg. I appreciate this. That's closer to what I want. It'll be less in the way. And now we've got a nice playground for all of our little guys. So that's pretty good. We're gonna save the scene before I forget. It would be a dang shame to lose that progress. So, now what? I lost a slipper. Okay. Next, biographical information. We need to put together a little database for our little guys, don't we? So, how do we want to do this? First, I'm going to make sure things are hunky-dory on the audience front. If folks aren't able to see what I'm doing, that's going to be an issue. Okay. Checking Discord. Doesn't seem to be any alarm bells. I suspect people are just very occupied with Deltarune right now, which is fair. I'm low-key wasting my time at this moment, but I will continue. Anyways, I'm not bitter. I too want to play the Deltarune. So we've got... Oh. They have a hidden... Those structures have a whole hidden body underneath the floor there. Good to know. good to know that they really are quite large. So we've got that sorted out. What's next? Biographical information. That's what I was talking about before. I need to create a script that I can use to keep track of our drones' biographical info. Talked about why that's important. Let's just get to the chase and start chewing on it. I'm going to close these other scenes. I don't need to have the fence scenes open anymore. We're going to be thinking about bio. So, at a minimum, our bio script is going to need a few things. First of those, let's just build that script before we go much further, because I'm going to be talking about that script. I might as well actually write it while we talk about it, right? So this is going to go in the scripts. Create new script. Now. So the way I see it, there are two different pieces of information that are going to be flying around. We have a script that keeps track of what all of our actual drones are. Currently, that lives in the game manager, right? It lives in the game manager, and in addition, it lives in HiveMind. However, both of those are just arrays of the character bodies right now, and we're moving away from that. So we need a script that represents basically a database of the drones that are in our colony, whether they're roaming around or not, because this is going to be a storage system too, in case you need to sort of grow the farm before you can have them all running around, right? A little treat, a little unlockable thing. And the ones that you don't have space for on the farm go into storage, right? So I feel like warehouse would be a good name for the script. No, because that represents the ones that are in storage more than anything else, right? Maybe something like head count, but that feels like the name of a function because you're counting heads. I could call it something like population. Honestly, that's a pretty good name for that script. So, population. Very cool. We've got our population script. The other thing I want to establish is I want to create a class to use to store the biographical information about the drones. That is not a resource. I'm intending to basically generate this information when a drone spawns or when it's loaded from a save. And to do that, I'm pretty sure I need a class that I can instance. Now, in Unity, this would be a serializable script because we need to be able to create instances of it in order to store information inside them, right? In Godot, those are just a class that don't extend anything else as far as I know. So I should be able to do that by creating a script. And I could do it by creating a subscript by declaring a class and then defining that class inside of another script, right? I don't really want to do that because similar to how I keep calling shared, right? I'll do shared and then I'll pull an enumerator from shared. And they all know what shared is because I declared it as a class. So if we look at shared, right, it just says class name shared, and then it just has all these enumerators, and that's its only purpose, right? I kind of want to create a script like that, but for the biographical information for the drones. So we already have something called a drone sheet, and that defines basically the characteristics of a species of drone. All of the room bots share one sheet. All of the triangles share one different sheet. And when I make a new type of drone, I make a new sheet, right? But this class I'm about to talk about, this is something that's going to get instanced for each unique drone in your colony, maybe even for the ones that are attacking your colony, right? The ones that could be up for purchase, the things that represent all of the data for one particular drone, that's going to be this class. So we created this population script, right? And more times than not, the drones are going to end up in population. So it occurs to me that I should be thinking about population when I'm thinking about what to call this other class. It's a class that holds info about a drone. We already have something like character sheet in the form of sheet. What do I want to call this other class? We're going to create a new script. We have population. We have sheet. What is going to be the instanced, that individual drone, right? I mean, I could call it individual, but that's kind of a long name. I could also just call it drone with a capital D, right? But that feels cheap. And I feel like that could cause problems. How about we call it something like drone record? Because that's ultimately what it is. It's a record of the drone and has references to all the stuff that we need to have references to. I think that's our answer. Drone record. Okay, we have population and we have drone record, right? So in the case of drone record, let's open it up. It doesn't extend node. It's class name, or is it class underscore name? I think it's class underscore name. Drone record. Cool. So we define the name of the class. Perfect. Then we need to go ahead and define the information that we're storing in each drone record. So in a lot of situations like this, they might get a unique ID number that identifies who exactly we're talking about. That does kind of make sense to do. I don't know if we need to do that. For now, we can refer to them simply with the reference to the actual drone record class, because I'm going to put a reference to that on body, and body is very easy to get. But I also need to create a method that will allow us to instantiate the scene for the generic type of drone, populate a drone record, put it on the body, get it all set up so that we can basically spawn them if they're coming back from an away mission, or if we're pulling them out of storage, or if they're joining us for the first time, right? And that will allow us to do stuff like set up our project so that instead of all of the drones being scattered around in the scene, we can have them all spawn and join in a more official fashion, right? More akin to starting a new game. That would be very nice. So, we've got a drone record. And in short, I don't think we need a unique ID number, because for now, there's an actual reference itself which we can pass around. And there's also their index inside of population could be helpful, right? I imagine a scenario that we would have like an array called all drones, and their index value effectively serves as an ID value. Small problem with that, though, is that we can't be just passing that around unless we're very careful about... Because here's the situation we want to avoid, right? let's say hypothetically we have that array called all drones, and we give them their ID values, and we, based off of their index values, we could have a problem where a drone could get deleted sort of in the middle of the array, and unless we keep that slot empty until it's filled again, and keep it null, and have to control for all of the errors associated with that, if we instead close it, we're going to have to reassign everybody's ID values to their new array positions, because the array is going to get shorter, and everybody after that drone is going to change, right? So there is some sense maybe in actually using unique ID values for drones. But we still don't have to worry about that yet, because for now we can do the no brain cells thing of just passing a reference to their drone record around, right? Because they're going to be stored somewhere. They're always going to be stored somewhere, even if the drone's not around. So I could use a quick break. I will step away. I'll be back shortly. In the meantime, let's let it run for y'all, because that's more entertaining than me just stepping away with nothing going on, right? I think that's more entertaining, at least. So we're just going to set that to watch, and I guess we'll be right back. Although that's not a good place for that. Let's maybe scooch that down a little bit. No, that's wrong. What did I do? I accidentally moved the background of my stream. Oh, come on. Pardon me while I mess with all of these elements for no reason. There we go. That's better. Okay. I really will be right back. Okay, I'm back at it. I really need to create a be right back scene in OBS. I can't believe I haven't done that. There we go. Okay. Back at it. So, we're working on the drone record class and the population class. Can I have another sip of liquid? Liquid is life. You gotta have your water. Much better. Okay, we've got our water. Let's work on it. So, drone record. Obviously, we need nickname. Previously, nickname was stored in the body. Now we got to move nickname somewhere else. So that's going to go into drone record, right? Because that's biographical information. But it's not going to be an export variable. Because this class is going to get instanced. We're never going to be able to edit this thing. Not really. So it's going to pull... Population is going to pull information from the body for now in order to populate these variables. And in the future, they're going to be populated from whatever database holds the sheets and the constructors, basically. The things that are going to be putting together our drone records and our databases and stuff like that are our population script. What else on the body do I need to pull here? We have personal speed. That comes from the sheet, right? However, that only comes from the sheet for now. There might be a biographical component to personal speed later, but we definitely need a reference to the drone sheet. That's going to be important. And in fact, I would say that's more important than nickname. It should be above nickname. We love nickname, but it is really damn important to know what that is. So, then we have personal speed. Personal speed, we're setting it somewhere. I feel like that may actually be set by the game manager. I've got to announce those, enunciate those M's, Pride Month. But that should get us where we want for now. Now, some other biographical information we might want here. Eventually, we're going to add more stuff to this. For now, this is sufficient, weirdly enough. Okay, so we've got the basics of the drone record created. So now we can save. Now we look at population. So population needs an array. Now, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of what are going to be the good ways to organize this. We probably want to have an owned drones array. It's not going to be all drones because I kind of want to keep invaders on a separate list for now. And I'm trying to think if it makes sense to have storage be its own list or for them to be cohabitating a list, right? This is kind of a tough nut to crack. If I make them separate lists, then I'm going to need to have methods for moving them from one place to another, rather than changing a state on the drone record. Ooh, there's room for an enumerator. Where the drone is. Its state in the game space, right? So now I think we hop over to shared. We need an enum for this. So, enum. I'm not sure what to call this an enum yet. So for now, we'll just call it TBD. We're going to name it by the time that we're done. But for now, I already know, I have an idea of what needs to go inside of this enum. And we'll put a little comment about this because this is for tracking. Oh no, that's the wrong line. This is for tracking the larger game state of your drones. And not just your drones, drones in general. Because, this might allow us to have an all drones array that encompasses more than just our drones. Because Invader could be a state, maybe. But for now, we know, let's see. It's basically like, where are they combined with who their allegiance is at this moment, right? So we have pasture. Oh wait, we're using lowercase for this. And pasture represents the drones that are wandering around on the farm, basically. We have storage. Those are the ones that are in the garage. But we either don't have space for them in the pasture, or we simply don't have them in the pasture right now. Now, I think there may need to be a state for if the drone is currently being worked on in an active way. Like, let's say hypothetically, we are pulling a drone into the garage to give it a new coat of paint, right? There might be a camera view and a UI for that where we're picking colors for it and it's the focus and we're in a space that's in the garage and it's not in the pasture. So it shouldn't count as being in the pasture, right? But it's not in the storage. So what would I call that? Maintenance might work, but it sort of implies repair. But the ways I am envisioning using this state I'm imagining here is like picking a coat of paint or like hosing it off and like giving it brushies, right? So maybe this is the spa. Like I like thinking about it as a spa, but that doesn't totally work. It's not a boutique. I guess we could call it maintenance for now. Let me double check that that's how you spell maintenance. I would ask chat this, but the obvious problems of, I think I spelled it right. The obvious problems of Deltarune having just come out, right? Folks are busy. Okay, so we've got maintenance defined. Not bitter at all. I'm going to clip this later. It's fine. It's going to be a meme. So we've got maintenance. What else do we want to do? We've got pasture. We have storage. We have maintenance. What are some other situations that we would feel the need to generate a drone record for a drone that isn't in any of those locations? Pasture, storage, maintenance, mission. So mission is for if we're sending a party of drones out to go do a job to help out a neighbor, something where we aren't going to see them. They're going to do something and then they're going to come back. And then their states may have changed somewhat based on how that went. Like their health might decrease, their battery might decrease. They might come back with a little treat, that kind of stuff. We love the idea of that. So that's mission. There's another similar state I'm going to define that odds are pretty good that we aren't going to touch it in the prototype, but I'm going to put it in here anyways for my own enrichment. And that is party. Party would be if you as the player took a group of your drones out to another location to do a mission. So they were with you and not at some other undisclosed location, right? Alternatively, that might be rolled into mission, to be honest. Because I can imagine a scenario that we have more than one group of drones sent out for more than one mission simultaneously, right? If I've got my job board and I have 5 missions, and I'm like, okay, well, I've got 50 drones. I can send 10 to go do this mission and 10 more to go do that mission. And I'll just try to keep it easy, or take it easy in terms of other work on the farm, so that everyone has time to charge afterwards and we're not open to attack or something like that, right? So with that in mind, the mission state could also work then for the drones that accompany us on a mission where we're playing as ourselves. However, those all seem different enough that it should probably just be a different state, right? It should be party instead of mission. That makes sense to me, right? So we have that sorted. Now, I don't see needing to charge and charging as a state that makes sense on this level. These are very different levels. I think charging is something that happens on the pasture, really, or at least some of the charging stations are on the pasture, right? So I don't think we need to establish charging battery at one of the charge stations to be one of these states either. That leaves us with, if hostile drones or drones that are for sale or for trade, do those get different states? I think those make perfect sense to me to be in this enumerator for now. But we might find later when we're actually scripting those features that it doesn't make sense. But for now, we're going to go ahead and add them. So I think for the case that they are attacking us, we can call it hostile. Before we define that, though, there's a state I'm going to be implementing first, most likely, and that's going to be visitors. That would be if wild drones show up at your pasture just to see what you've got going on. They don't have any ill intent. They're just getting the lay of the land. And that makes them more neutral than anything else. And the only things that will come from that is they'll either decide that they want to try to join or they'll leave. So I'll call that visitor, because they're technically in the pasture at that point. But they have a special status in that they are not part of your colony at that time. So they can't, for example, they won't, well, I don't know that for sure. My gut instinct tells me that, let's say you have a building job on your farm in the works, on your pasture in the works, where you're trying to get your drones to assemble a structure or to finish an earthworks, a terraforming action. My gut instinct tells me that visitors won't do that. They won't help with that. But that might be kind of cute, though, if they might do that. Like, because I remember these cute videos of people interacting with basically escaped zoo animals or escaped farm animals that come up to the person all curious because they love people, right? They're farm animals or the zoo animals. They're used to people. And I imagine if a helpful work animal from someone else's farm came up to me to see what I'm all about, I might be able to sugar cube them into helping me with something. So for now, visitor gets to be its own category, but it might have all of the same privileges as pasture, ultimately, when the time comes to make these functional. So we've got visitor established. Then we have hostile. Hostile, they're there to cause problems on purpose. There's no other way about it, right? Then there's another subcategory I'm thinking of, which is we have they are generated. They aren't on the pasture. They're not wild or neutral. They're not hostile because they're for sale or they're available for trade. And that would be, let's say an NPC is visiting your colony and they have a selection of drones or one drone for trade or for sale for specific situations, right? We still want to generate the drone record for that drone, even though they aren't actually doing anything. They're basically in someone's inventory. They're in their truck or something or whatever. So at that point, we could call that something like one of these would be trade. One of them would be they're for sale. That would make them merch. And then there's one last category I can think of. And this is a very long shot. And that would be if an NPC is visiting you and they're in your pasture and they brought with them one of their drones. But it's not for sale, it's not for trade. It's their escort. Right? So we have basically the ones that belong to us, the ones that are wild, and the ones that are associated with NPCs. Those are useful categories, right? I wonder if I can insert comments here to make this easier for me when I'm looking at this later, right? So these belong to us, then wild, then NPC. Cool. So we'll save that. Now, that is something that should be a part of drone record. So this is var. Ooh, we haven't named that variable yet. Right, we just called it TBD. Now, it's giving location to me, but location is not going to be a good term because technically pasture, hostile, visitor, and escort all have the same location, but they're going to be very different states here. So it's a combination of allegiance and location. I'm gonna cook for a second here. I'm gonna call this variable flag because in my mind, right, that combines location and allegiance. Or not just location, but it combines allegiance and other information. Flags not only allow, in terms of like naval terms, it not only tells other ships what country your ship sails under, but depending on how you're flying your flag and what other flags you display, it might tell other useful information like steer clear or assist me or like nice shirt. I don't know what you have to do to fly a flag in a way to tell the other ship that they have a nice shirt. I'm sure there's something like that though. And so we've got this called flag then. That's what this is called. Very cool. So we've got flag. We're going to save it. So now in drone record, now we can define flag. So it makes sense to me is just to freaking say it. It's the flag variable for the drone record, right? So the type is of course shared.flag. And it's going to be equal to shared flag. Crud. We need a default variable. Ooh, okay. We don't want to default to pasture. That's going to cause problems. Everyone's going to be looking at pasture to see if they're someone that they should check availability for and maybe interact with or assign to jobs. That cannot be the default. So we need to look at shared again, and we need to create some flags for these different categories as a starting point, right? So first we're going to have none. Flag none. Actually, flag none does everything we need it to do, because when we instantiate the drone record class and flag is set to none, we set it. And then if something happens and there's a drone running around somewhere with a flag of none, then we really know something went wrong. But for now, none, that does everything we need to do. I was very tempted to have an equivalent of none for each of these 3 subcategories. That's not necessary. So it's equal to shared.flag.none. There we go. And the unhappy color disappears. So we're going to save that. Very cool. We've got the flag variable. Now in population. So we were talking about all drones. We're talking about having an all drones variable, right? I still feel like that's the best way. That's just the best way for now. I can't think of a better way to do this. Now, should drone record have a reference to the body? Oh, that's a tough one. Okay. The body should definitely have a reference to the drone record, because when they're bumping into each other and stuff, they're getting references to the body very easily, right? I'm trying to think, is there a reason that the drone record needs a reference to the body if it has all of the biographical information? I don't know about that. I feel like it does need that, specifically because we might need to reach through the drone record to make it act, right? In the same way that like Hive Mind uses references to the body to do stuff. You know, I don't see the harm in creating a variable for it and finding a good way to handshake those variables together, where we're loading the drone scene, the appropriate drone scene, and we're connecting the dots for everything else. And that makes me think, honestly, the sheet probably needs a reference to the scene for that particular drone too. Because then we could... Oh man. I don't know about this. Now we're in interesting territory of project architecture. I think we're going to create a variable for it, right? It's going to be a character 3D. It's a stepping stone. It may be temporary, right? Drone record has it. Oh, no. Cancel. File. Save. And then in population, now we need to do an array with all the drones. The next issue, man, we got to address the issue of, do we have an all drones array, or do we have separate arrays? But then we have maybe a way to... I just can't think of a scenario in which we want to actually pull all drone records for anything, unless we're looking for a specific drone. But if we have a reference to the record, we don't need to talk to population for that, right? So I think we go separate arrays. We have an allies array and an enemies array and an NPCs array for drones. And we just sort of go from there, maybe? The other thing, too, is that I can imagine pockets of smaller populations, right? Ooh, uh-oh. Population might be a variable that is an array of drone records. And then we're passing around populations. I don't know how I feel about that. Population as an array of drone records. Actually, that makes perfect sense. Because the hive mind should have a population variable for your colony. And an attack should have a population record for the attacking drones. So this needs to be class name population. And it has an array of drone records. So here's the thing. What is that variable called? We could call it TBD for now. It's an array of drone record I think that's correct. I think that's the right way to do it. We're going to look at one of our other scripts to see. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So we've got population. What do we call that? When we're tossing around a population, right? How do we want to refer to all of its members? Oh, well, there we go. All members. Easy. All members of the population is called all members. Of course. Why would I call it anything else? That's easy. Okay, so we've got population defined. We have drone sheet or drone record defined. And note, this doesn't cover NPCs or the player character or employees or anything with a flesh vessel, right? Or literal actual animals, which is something I do want to add. Like, it would be kind of fun if you could have like a bird come and visit and like talk and be someone that you could have a dialogue with, because it's a bird and birds can be freaky smart sometimes, right? So we've got our all members population, which again only refers to drones. I say this just goes smack dab into hive mind, right? Hive mind was the right place. It's still the right place. So we're going to go var, it's our population, right? Population of our colony. So maybe we could call it our population, our colony, communist Bugs Bunny meme, and its type population equals new population. Hang on, cannot assign value. I don't remember how to do this. I don't remember how to do this at all. But I took notes on this, right? I'm checking my phone because that's where I put the notes. Okay, the variable thing, class name dot new. There we go. Wait. Oh, I didn't put an equals. Okay, so population is a new population. That's going to be an instance of the population class. We can fill that using a function with all of the information from our starting drones, right? And we should be able to do that. We should be able to do that. Our drones, they should have a reference to their drone record too. The body should have a reference to that. So var drone self? Drone self? What? Okay, so this is their reference to their drone record. We could, oh, this is funny. Let's just call it papers. They have their papers. They have their ID, right? Papers is a drone record, right? We hit save. Okay, and in HiveMind, we've got our array. We've got our population, rather, population new. Then in Game Manager, we have our, on ready, we have register starting bots. We're telling them to do stuff. We're telling them their reference to HiveMind, right? We're assigning reference manager. We already gave HiveMind a reference to all drones. During register starting bots, we probably ought to go ahead and I feel like HiveMind doesn't get it until after we've registered them, right? I think we need to add a step where we tell HiveMind to give them papers. So HiveMind needs a new function. What do? We would register them, right? So, but if we're registering them to the population, I don't want to use weird terms like birth or anything like that. That's going to be weird and gross. I don't want to make people think about that for these little robots. They're too pure for that. But I would call it maybe something like certify, right? Because we're basically creating a certificate for them to say, hey, this is your record of existing, right? But specifically for the starting drones, this is going to handle our debug case. We're going to need different functions for this later. So, func. Certify starting drones. Okay, we have a function for it. We're going to call it. HiveMind certify starting drones. Very cool. And to make sure that we really are doing this, actually, we don't need more make sures. We have an array of all drones. So, if all drones size is 0, safety case, print no drones for HiveMind to certify. Easy. And we can go return. That way, Cuts it off at the seam. If we don't have any drones to certify, problem solved. Now, for I in all drones size. And as I had said in a previous episode, when you do a for statement like this in the size of an array, it won't include the very last number in I. It'll go from 0 up until the end, so you don't have to worry about going outside of the size of the array for an if or for a for statement like this, right? So for I in all drones, we already have established population. We should probably have a function in population for receiving. But if it's just a class, does it actually do? This would be a good thing to test. So inside population, we're going to do func receive our register member. So member is going to be a drone record, right? So we're going to go ahead and define that. We're going to be type safe about this. I love being type safe. So, now do we check to see if it's already in there, or do we just go ahead and do it? I can't imagine a scenario that they're actually going to be identical, because even if the instances contain the same information, they won't be identical, right? So, if, let's just add it. Do we check to see if we already have it or not? I don't know. Let's throw a debug message if we do, and otherwise we add it. If all members has member. We don't want to register the same person more than once under any circumstance. I accidentally hit insert. Print debug population is getting a duplicate of, and since we know population has the nickname variable, we can go plus member dot nickname. Okay. Return. We don't want it to continue because I don't want to indent the rest of this under an else statement. So register member is just going to be all members dot append, right? Member. Easy. File, save. So that's called register member. We're going to grab that. I'm going to learn from my previous lesson. And we're doing certify all starting drones here. That's done its job. So for I in all drones dot size, we're going to create a new instance of drone record, right? var r equals drone record dot new. Very cool. So that's R. And we're going through all drones, right? So we do if all drones I dot, oh, I hit insert by mistake again. Nickname. No, not input array. If it's not empty, not activity max, I don't even know how that happened. Then r dot nickname equals all drones I dot nickname. Actually, you know what? Let's make this even easier, right? Var d equals all drones I. This will make this a lot easier, because then I can do d.nickname. There we go. If d nickname's not empty, actually, you know what? F it. R nickname equals d nickname. We don't even have to check, because if it's empty, it's going to be empty, right? Right? I'm not crazy. So then, okay. What other variables do our boy have? We do have to keep in mind that in drone record, right, the flag is none. We need to set the flag to pasture for this particular function. Sheet needs to be the same. That's important. Personal speed, gosh, I don't think we need to set that. We don't have to worry about that just yet. And character body, we want to set that reference to. So flag, character body, drone sheet. Those are the things that need to go into the rest of this equation, right? R dot sheet. Is that what I called it there? Shit. Oh, pardon my language there. Okay. It is sheet. Okay. R dot sheet equals d dot sheet. No, just d dot sheet. R dot, well, hang on. So R, this might make my life easier, is a drone record, right? So R dot flag. Yeah, okay. Now I'm into type safety, because now that we're doing type safety stuff, it knows what variables and probably also functions I've defined on the class name. Now we're cooking. This is going to be a big efficiency improvement if I stop talking about it. R.flag is going to be equal to shared flag pasture. That gets us in the clear for that. So we have nickname, sheet, pasture. Now we need the body. R.body equals, it just equals D, right? Because D is a reference to the body right now. One more quick look, just to be sure that I'm not missing anything on drone record that I need. Sheet, got it. Nickname, got it. Flag, we have that, and we're setting it to pasture. Body, we have it. Personal speed, not important right now. Not important right now. Because in my mind, personal speed, that's more of a body thing, because they're trying to figure out, based off of the sheet, how fast they should go. Eventually, there might be some stuff in this little drone record that might affect personal speed. For now, body can handle that because it's moving stuff. So that needs to be the same, right? So at the end of this, I want to make sure everything worked. So we're going to do print registered plus r.nickname. Now, for the ones that don't have a nickname, it's just going to give me empties. I'm okay with that, because that's more of a test statement than anything else. So we're going to save. I should be able to hit play, though, and it should do this, because on HiveMind, it's getting called by Game Manager. Everything we need is there. We just have to hit play. We just have to hit play about it. Okay? We're seeing the little guys. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I think we got there. So let's pause it for a second and look at the output, right? Where is it? Where do I see the output? No, that's not what I need. Man, where is the output hiding? Ugh. Where in the heck are the print messages? Let's try this again, right? We know it worked. Oh, I had the debugger opened, not output. Yeah, okay. Pause. Output. Registered drone. Boom, 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 boom. We've got Bippy Titty, Scrumgus, Sneckers, Marvin, Scrub-a-Bingo, some empties, Widget, some more empties. That's what I needed to see. That's what I'm happy to see. We got there. We've got the very beginning of a biographical info database for them. Now, we didn't get around to some of the camera stuff. And I did spend a little bit of time on the fences, more than I'm 100% jazzed about. However, I'm pretty happy with the way things are right now. That felt like a big win. The fact that that bioinfo thing I did exactly what I hoped it would do. It registered all of the drones. It instanced copies of the script. We've got a state for it. They're pastured. That's actual concrete progress towards the prototype, right? We're one step closer. And that feels excellent to me. I'm very happy with that. And I hope you're happy too. It's been good. But I think this is going to be a good time to wrap up. So, in conclusion, right? We managed to get all of our new fences up, and we can do a little camera switch here so that we can see some of that. Got a nice little cluster of little guys there. In conclusion, we got our new fences in place. We've got a placeholder for the barn. We've got a placeholder for the gate. We've added transparency to the obelisk and the barn and the gate. That way we can still see the little guys doing stuff, and we don't have to worry about the fact that I haven't bothered to set up fancy rendering stuff so that we can see through them when the thing that we're focused on happens to be behind it. That kind of thing. We're not quite there yet, so I'm okay that it took us a second and we're working. So look at that. We got the guys, we got a little fence. That's good stuff. I'm sort of in the way. Crud. My big head completely blocked a perfect example of what that looked like here. I'm going to be ready to move out of the way. So look. Okay, see, now I'm out. Oh, crap. I was a little too slow. There we go. See, there's our new fences in the corner. That feels good. I'm really happy about that. So we got that. And we did lay the groundwork for some boring back-end stuff that will come in handy in the future in the form of population, drone record, and the stuff that we did on HiveMind. Because pretty soon, nickname's not going to be stored in the body anymore. It's going to be stored someplace that we can easily save and load. That's what I'm thinking about now. Because on the last project I was on, right, when I was working at Lostgate, one of the things I made for Mindflux was their very first saving and loading system. I learned a lot since I worked on that. There are some pitfalls that I now know to avoid. There are some others that I haven't found good ways to avoid yet that are on my radar, but as I work on this, obviously I'm going to come up with some good improvements, and it's early stages. This is the prototype, right? But I still want a way to save your progress. And by creating that biographical info and having that stored in populations and having that stored in hive mind, at least for your colony, for now, that's a good starting point. I'm thinking about containers. I'm thinking about how is it that I can fold up the information that needs to be saved and unfold it back into a game state, right? We're making progress towards that, and that makes me happy. And this is still really cute and fun to watch. I really like that. You know, I think the fence is okay. It's not crazy good. In fact, I kind of think I almost feel like it's too high res in terms of a texture for what we want. Like, I would go even simpler for that. I think I tried to put too much detail. Did I put too much detail into that fence texture? I feel like I did. We can get some feedback on that. At least for now, though, I'm going to be happy that we have something to look at there. That's an improvement. I really do think I ought to have something to disturb the ground, right? Like, because stuff is not so cut and dry near a fence. There's usually some disturbed ground around there. So I kind of feel like maybe there needs to be something more about those fence lengths in terms of floor texture. I don't know. Maybe hit me up with a message on that, or a comment when this makes it to a YouTube video or something. But I have some thoughts about that. Well, another thing too I ought to be thinking about for next time is avoidance. I saw the avoidance variable when I was looking at navigation agents, which is what allows them to pathfind a sweet, one of those roombots just stunted off the edge of that raised area. I love seeing that. But apparently, avoidance may be a thing that would allow them to try to avoid. I'm assuming it's going to be avoiding other characters, right? I don't actually know. I haven't done any research about that. But I know, push comes to shove, I could come up with a script that would allow them to maneuver around their fellow friends to get where they're trying to go, right? I think I can do that. I've fudged something similar. So I'm pretty sure we can avoid those situations where one of these little guys just gets trapped in a mob of other little guys, right? Another alternative, and this is something I have been thinking about, is what if I tried to convert them into dynamic bodies, rigid bodies, whatever. I don't remember off the top of my head what it's called in Godot. But the things that are acted on by physics instead of controlled by a character controller style script. Because that would allow them to push each other out of the way without needing to script anything special. But it would also allow me to launch them and do big bonks and have that be handled by the physics engine. Which is something I've been thinking about, right? I didn't choose to do that at first because I was like, it's going to be easier to move a character if it's a character body, right? I was heeing and hawing and wringing my hands about it that it would be harder. But I think I might be able to pull it off. So I think it might be time to revisit that too. I'm hoping I'm going to have some answers to some of these questions between now and next stream, which is going to be this coming Friday, 8 p.m. EST to 10 p.m. EST, maybe a little later, not too much later though. I'm starting to figure out what my limits are like, and I think the last time I was streaming on Friday, I tried to go a little too long. I'm approaching my limit today, for example, so expect that to be a little shorter next time, perhaps. But yeah, next time we have a lot to explore. We can explore going to rigid bodies for the robots. Maybe that would require a lot of re-scripting because of the number of times we refer to the body, to the character body, right? But it could be worth it for a number of reasons, including pushing your fellow friend out of the way. And for that, I leave you today. Thanks for tuning in. It's been fun. We got a lot done. I'm really excited about how things are looking and what we accomplished. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.